The rain tapped against the workshop window as Maya Lin wiped grease from her hands with a rag that had seen better days. The old clock on the wall read 7:43 p.m. Another late night fixing engines in the small coastal town she now called home. 3 years had passed since she'd touched the controls of a fighter jet, but her calloused fingers still twitched sometimes, remembering the feel of the throttle. That should do it. "Mr. Parker," she said, closing the hood of the ancient pickup truck. "Timing belt's fixed, but you might want to think about replacing that radiator soon." The old fisherman nodded, fishing out crumpled bills from his wallet. "Don't know what we'd do without you around here. Not many mechanics willing to stay open past sundown." Maya forced a smile, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. "Not much else to do around here, is there?" After Mr. Parker left, she locked up the small repair shop. The sign above the door read Coastal Repairs. Nothing fancy, nothing memorable. That was the point. The military had helped her disappear after Operation Nightshade went sideways. New name, new history, new life far away from anyone who might recognize Captain Maya Lin, decorated fighter pilot. She walked the 4 blocks to her small apartment above the town's bookstore, hood pulled up against the drizzle and the possibility of being noticed. Not that anyone here would know her face. As far as the world was concerned, Maya Lin had died 3 years ago along with her entire squadron. Inside her apartment, she flipped on the lights and tossed her keys onto the counter. The place was sparse. A couch, a small TV she rarely watched, a bookshelf filled with technical manuals, and a bed. No photos on the walls, no mementos, nothing that connected her to before. Maya opened her refrigerator, stared at its meager contents, and settled on leftover pizza. As she waited for it to heat in the microwave, her eyes drifted to the locked cabinet in the corner of the living room. Only one thing had come with her from her past life. A small wooden box containing her medals, a photo of her squadron, and the letter from General Blackwood explaining why she had to disappear. The microwave beeped. Maya ate standing up at the counter, flipping through a motorcycle magazine without really seeing the pages. Outside, the rain picked up, drumming against the roof in a rhythm that reminded her of distant anti-aircraft fire. She hadn't meant to fall asleep on the couch, but the nightmares found her anyway. She was back in the cockpit, flying through thick clouds over contested airspace. The mission was supposed to be straightforward. Reconnaissance only, no engagement. Her squadron of 6 jets had the best stealth technology available. They shouldn't have been detected. Viper 2, "Stay in formation," she heard herself say through the comms. "Captain, I'm picking up something weird on radar," came the voice of her wingman. "Danny, it's like..." The rest was swallowed by static. Then a blinding flash as Danny's jet erupted into flames. "We're hot! We're hot!" someone shouted. "Taking fire from multiple directions. Evasive maneuvers!" Maya ordered, banking her jet hard to the left. "Command, this is Viper Leader. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack." But only static answered her calls. Their communications had been jammed. The sky lit up with tracer fire unlike anything she'd seen before. Not standard anti-aircraft weaponry. Something new. Something that could track them despite their stealth tech. Something that shouldn't exist. "Break off. Scatter pattern Delta," she shouted, but it was too late. One by one, the blips on her radar vanished, each one a friend, a colleague, a life extinguished. The final moments played out in horrifying slow motion. Her desperate evasive maneuvers. The hit that took out her right engine. The mayday call no one would hear. And the sickening realization that they'd been set up. Someone had known exactly where they would be. Maya woke with a gasp, her shirt damp with sweat, heart hammering against her ribs. The clock read 3:17 a.m. The dreams always felt so real. The smell of burning fuel, the G-forces pressing her into her seat, the voices of her squadron in those final moments. She stumbled to the bathroom and splashed cold water on her face. The woman in the mirror looked older than 32. Dark circles under her eyes. A thin scar across her left cheekbone from the crash landing. Hair chopped short and dyed a nondescript brown instead of its natural black. "You're a mechanic now," she whispered to her reflection. Just a mechanic. But the lie felt hollow even after 3 years. Morning came with pale sunlight and the distant cry of seagulls. Maya opened the repair shop at exactly 8 a.m. just like every other day. Routine was her anchor. The same coffee from the diner across the street. The same greeting to Mrs. Wilson, who walked her dog past the shop every morning. the same local radio station playing softly in the background. By noon, she'd fixed a faulty alternator, replaced brake pads on a delivery van, and was elbow-deep in the dismantled engine of a fishing boat when her phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. Coastal Repairs, she answered, wedging the phone between her ear and shoulder as she continued working. Silence greeted her, then a click as the caller hung up. Maya froze, a cold feeling settling in her stomach. Wrong numbers happened, of course, but something about the silence felt deliberate. She wiped her hands and checked the number. No caller ID. For the rest of the day, she found herself glancing at the windows more often, studying the faces of people walking by the shop. Old habits from her military days, habits she'd worked hard to break. Just before closing time, the bell above the door jingled. A middle-aged woman with a friendly smile walked in, keys in hand. "Hi there. My car's making this awful noise when I turn left. Any chance you could take a look?" The request was ordinary enough, but something about the woman's posture, too straight, too alert, set off warning bells in Maya's head. "Sure," Maya said carefully. "What kind of car is it?" "Blue sedan parked out front." Maya wiped her hands on a rag and followed the woman outside. The blue sedan was indeed there, engine running, and beside it stood a man in a suit watching her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Is that your husband?" Maya asked, already knowing the answer, already calculating the distance to the alley behind her shop. "No," the woman said, her friendly demeanor shifting to something more professional. "Captain Lin, we need you to come with us." The name hit Maya like a physical blow. Nobody had called her captain in 3 years. "I think you have the wrong person," she said, backing up a step. "My name is Claire Winters." The man approached, hands visible to show he wasn't armed. "Captain, General Blackwood sent us. Authorization code Echo November Tango Victor 6. The code was correct. The emergency protocol Blackwood had established if he ever needed to contact her, which meant something had gone very, very wrong. "I'm not going back," Maya said, even as she recognized the futility of resistance. If they'd found her, if Blackwood had sent them, then whatever was happening was serious enough to blow her cover. "The general said you'd say that," the woman remarked with a thin smile. "He also said to tell you that the birds have come home to roost. He said you'd understand." Maya felt the blood drain from her face. It was a reference to their final conversation before her disappearance. Blackwood's warning that someday, the truth about Operation Nightshade might surface. That the people responsible for the ambush might be exposed, or that they might strike again. "When?" she asked simply. "Now," the man said. "There's a car waiting at the airfield. The general needs you in Washington by morning." Maya looked back at her shop. The life she'd built from nothing. The anonymity she'd fought to maintain. The peace she'd almost convinced herself she deserved. "I need 10 minutes, she said finally. Inside, she went straight to the locked cabinet and retrieved the wooden box. From it, she took only one thing, her old dog tags still stained with blood from the crash. She slipped them around her neck, tucked them beneath her shirt, and locked the shop for what she suspected would be the last time. As the black SUV pulled away from the curb, Maya watched the small coastal town recede in the side mirror. For 3 years, she'd been a ghost, a name on a memorial wall, a redacted file. She'd been nobody. Now she was Captain Maya Lin again, the last pilot surviving from Operation Nightshade. And judging by the grim expressions of her escorts, that wasn't going to be a simple reunion. Whatever was coming, the nightmares were about to get worse. The military jet sliced through clouds as Maya stared out the small window. Below, city lights glittered like fallen stars. 3 years since she'd been this high above the ground. 3 years since she'd left Washington behind, along with her identity and everything she knew. "We'll be landing in 20 minutes, Captain," the female agent said, the one who had introduced herself as Agent Cho. The male agent, Peters, hadn't spoken since they'd boarded. Maya nodded but said nothing. Her mind was racing, piecing together what little information they'd shared during the journey. A security threat, something connected to Operation Nightshade, something only she could help with. The aircraft touched down at Andrews Air Force Base with barely a bump. Maya felt a strange tightness in her chest as she stepped onto the tarmac. The air smelled different here, jet fuel, concrete, and power. A black car waited on the runway, engine humming. Agent Peters opened the back door, gesturing for her to enter. "Where are we going?" Maya asked, hesitating at the car door. "Pentagon," Agent Cho replied. The general is waiting. The drive through nighttime Washington felt surreal. Maya watched familiar landmarks pass by. Monuments lit up against the darkness. Government buildings where she'd once attended briefings. Streets she'd walked in another life. It was like visiting a place she'd only seen in dreams. Security at the Pentagon was as tight as she remembered. Multiple checkpoints, ID scans, armed guards. Maya noticed how people looked at her, curious, suspicious. She was wearing civilian clothes, escorted by agents from an unnamed department, a security anomaly. They led her deep into the building through corridors that required special clearance. Finally, they stopped at a heavy door with no markings except a keypad. Agent Peters punched in a code, and the door slid open to reveal a dimly lit room filled with screens, maps, and about a dozen people hunched over computers. At the center stood General Harrison Blackwood. 3 years had aged him. His hair had gone completely gray and new lines etched his face. But his posture remained ramrod straight, his eyes sharp as ever beneath bushy eyebrows. The room fell silent as Maya entered. All eyes turned to her, expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. "Captain Lynn," Blackwood said, his voice gruff but not unkind. "Thank you for coming." "Didn't realize I had a choice, sir," Maya replied. A ghost of a smile crossed Blackwood's face. "Some things never change. Still speaking your mind, I see." He gestured toward a door at the far end of the room. "Let's talk privately." The side room was small, containing only a table, a few chairs, and a coffee machine that looked like it had been running nonstop for days. Blackwood closed the door behind them and motioned for Maya to sit. "Coffee?" he offered. "I'd rather have answers, sir." Blackwood poured himself a cup before sitting across from her. "Fair enough. Where would you like me to start?"
Why am I here?
"Why now, after 3 years of playing dead?" The general took a long sip before answering. 2 weeks ago, one of our surveillance satellites picked up unusual activity in the same region where Operation Nightshade went down. The exact coordinates where we lost contact with your squadron. Maya felt her mouth go dry. "What kind of activity?" "Construction. Heavy machinery. Materials being transported under cover of darkness." Blackwood pressed a button on a small remote, and a screen on the wall lit up with satellite images. "Whatever they're building, they're trying to hide it." Maya studied the grainy photos. What looked like bunkers, access roads carved into mountainsides, strange circular structures partially hidden under camouflage netting. "This could be anything," she said. "Military base, mining operation. It's a weapons testing facility," Blackwood interrupted. "And they're testing the same technology that shot down your squadron 3 years ago." The room seemed to tilt slightly. Maya gripped the edge of the table to steady herself. "How do you know?" she asked quietly. Blackwood's face darkened. "Because we're picking up the same energy signatures that were recorded by your flight recorder before communications were jammed. The recorder that you managed to preserve during your crash landing." The memories flooded back, dragging herself from the burning wreckage. Knowing her survival made no sense when the others had been blown out of the sky. The strange readings her instruments had shown just before everything went dark. The flight recorder she'd pried from the dashboard with broken fingers, somehow knowing it was important. "I thought that data was classified," Maya said. "Buried so deep not even Congress could find it." "It was." "It is." Blackwood looked suddenly tired. "But someone else has it now." "Who?" The general stood up and paced the small room. "That's what we need to figure out. Someone inside our own organization leaked not only the flight path of Operation Nightshade 3 years ago, but also the technical data from your recorder. Someone wanted your squadron eliminated, and now they're helping develop the technology that did it." Maya leaned back in her chair, processing this. "So this is about finding a traitor." "It's about preventing a catastrophe," Blackwood corrected. "The weapons system that took down 6 of our most advanced stealth fighters in under 2 minutes is now being developed on a much larger scale. If it becomes operational, it could neutralize our entire air capability. Whoever controls it would have unprecedented military advantage. And you think I can help you find this traitor? How exactly? I've been fixing boat engines in a town so small it doesn't have a traffic light for 3 years. Blackwood stopped pacing and looked directly at her. "Because you're the only witness. The only pilot who saw what this weapon could do and lived. The only person who might recognize details that others would miss." He paused. "And because you're the last person anyone would expect us to bring in. You're officially dead, Captain. That gives you a unique advantage." Maya laughed without humor. So I'm your secret weapon? The ghost you're bringing back to haunt someone? Something like that. A knock at the door interrupted them. Agent Cho entered without waiting for a response. Sir, the briefing is ready. Blackwood nodded. We'll be right there. After she left, he turned back to Maya. Before we join the others, there's something you should know. Most of the people out there don't know the full story about Operation Nightshade. The official record states it was an unfortunate encounter with conventional forces. Only a handful of people know about the advanced weapons system or the possibility of internal sabotage. Who does know? Maya asked. Besides me? The Joint Chiefs, the Secretary of Defense, and the team you're about to meet. Hand-picked specialists who've been investigating this for months. Blackwood's voice dropped lower. Trust no one else, Captain. Not until we know who's feeding information to the enemy. Back in the main room, faces turned toward them expectantly. Blackwood gestured to a large screen at the front of the room. Captain Lin, meet your new team, he said. Lieutenant Zhu, our technology specialist. Dr. Rivera, weapons systems analyst. Commander Chen, tactical operations. And Alex Wu, our intelligence officer. Each person nodded as they were introduced. Maya studied their faces, trying to gauge their reactions to her presence. The tech specialist, a young woman with glasses, looked openly curious. The weapons analyst, an older man with salt and pepper hair, seemed skeptical. The tactical officer and intelligence officer were harder to read. Team, as you've been briefed, Captain Lin is the sole survivor of Operation Nightshade. Her experience and knowledge will be crucial to our mission. Blackwood clicked through slides on the screen, showing more satellite images, diagrams, charts with data Maya didn't understand. Our objective is to identify who leaked classified information about our stealth technology, determine the full capabilities of this new weapons system, and neutralize the threat before it becomes operational. Dr. Rivera raised a hand. General, with all due respect, what can Captain Lin contribute that our technical analysis hasn't already uncovered? She's been out of service for 3 years, and her expertise was flying. Not weapons development. Maya felt her jaw tighten, but before she could respond, Blackwood spoke. Captain Lin didn't just fly the mission. Dr. Rivera, she completed it. A murmur went through the room. Maya stared at Blackwood, confused. What do you mean, completed it? Commander Chen asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Blackwood glanced at Maya. After her squadron was attacked and her own aircraft damaged, Captain Lin continued to the target area. She gathered the intelligence we needed, transmitted it on an emergency channel, and then made her way back to friendly territory despite severe injuries and a compromised aircraft. The room fell silent. Maya felt their eyes on her, reassessing. The intelligence she gathered confirmed our suspicions that someone had deliberately set up her squadron to be ambushed. Blackwood continued. Someone who wanted to test their new weapons system against our best stealth technology. Someone who had access to classified mission details. And you believe the same actors are behind this new facility? Lieutenant Zhu asked. We're certain of it, Blackwood said grimly. The question is, who are they working with inside our organization? Maya looked around the room at these strangers who now held her life in their hands, and wondered if one of them might be the very traitor they were hunting. When do we start? She asked. Blackwood checked his watch. We already have. As of this moment, you're all on a classified assignment codenamed Operation Phoenix. Your regular duties are suspended. You'll be working from secure facilities and living on base until further notice. As the team dispersed to gather equipment and data, Blackwood pulled Maya aside. Are you sure you're ready for this? He asked quietly. 3 years is a long time to be away. Maya thought about her quiet life in the coastal town, the shop she'd probably never see again, the peace she'd almost found. Do I have a choice? She asked. We always have choices, Captain, Blackwood said, his eyes unreadable. The question is whether we can live with them. Maya touched the dog tags hidden beneath her shirt. Window. And do I get back in the air? For the first time that night, Blackwood smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. I was hoping you'd ask that. Tomorrow morning's 0600. Simulator first, then we'll see. As Maya followed an escort to her temporary quarters, she felt something she hadn't experienced in 3 years, a sense of purpose, mixed with fear and something else she couldn't quite name. Maybe it was anger at having her new life ripped away, or maybe it was relief that she no longer had to hide. Whatever came next, Captain Maya Lin was back from the dead. And someone was about to pay for putting her there in the first place. The flight simulator hummed to life around Maya, the cockpit's familiar contours both comforting and strange. Her hands hovered over the controls, hesitant. 3 years since she'd held a stick, felt the throttle beneath her palm. "Just like riding a bike, Captain," came Blackwood's voice through her headset. He was watching from the control room with the rest of the team. Maya flexed her fingers, took a deep breath. "Let's see if I remember how to pedal." The simulation started simple, basic flight patterns, standard maneuvers. Maya's movements were stiff at first, overthinking each action, but muscle memory is a powerful thing. By the third run, her body remembered what her mind had tried to forget. The stick became an extension of her arm, the pedals responding to the slightest pressure from her feet. "Increasing difficulty," Lieutenant Zhu announced, her voice professional but with an undercurrent of excitement. "Combat Scenario Alpha 3 loading. The simulated sky filled with hostiles. Not just any enemies. The exact scenario from Operation Nightshade." Maya's heart rate spiked, sweat beading on her forehead as she faced the ghosts of her past mission. This time, she was ready. She threw the virtual jet into a series of maneuvers that defied standard training protocols, improvising defensive patterns that seemed born of instinct rather than practice. The simulated threats dropped away one by one. In the control room, silence fell as they watched her performance on the monitors. "Is she dancing with that thing?" Commander Chen murmured. Dr. Rivera leaned forward, glasses sliding down his nose. "Those aren't standard evasive maneuvers." "No," Blackwood agreed. "They're better." When Maya finally stepped out of the simulator, she found the entire team staring at her with expressions ranging from impressed to suspicious. "Well?" she asked, wiping sweat from her brow. Lieutenant Zhu was the first to speak, eyes bright with admiration. "That was the highest score I've ever seen on that simulation, and I programmed it." "It's been 3 years," Dr. Rivera said, folding his arms. "How did you—" "When you crash a real jet and somehow survive," Maya cut in, "you tend to remember what went wrong. And how to fix it if you ever get another chance." Blackwood checked his watch. "Get cleaned up, Captain. Real birds in 30 minutes. The airfield stretched before her, morning sun glinting off the sleek body of an F-35. Maya walked around it slowly, running her fingers over the cool metal surface, reacquainting herself with the machine that had once been as familiar to her as her own heartbeat. The crew chief handed her a flight suit. "She's prepped and ready, Captain." Maya changed in the locker room, the weight of the suit on her shoulders a forgotten familiarity. When she looked in the mirror, a ghost stared back, not the small-town mechanic, but the pilot she'd once been. Only the haunted look in her eyes was new. Pre-flight checks complete, she settled into the cockpit. The helmet felt heavier than she remembered, the oxygen mask a claustrophobic presence against her face. "Tower, this is Phoenix 1, ready for takeoff," she said, using the call sign Blackwood had assigned her. "Phoenix, risen from the ashes, a bit on the nose but fitting." "Phoenix 1, you are cleared for takeoff," came the response. "Winds 5 knots from the southeast." The runway blurred beneath her as the jet gathered speed, then fell away as Maya pulled back on the stick. The G-forces pressed her into her seat as the aircraft climbed, piercing through clouds into the clear blue above. For the first time in 3 years, Maya Lin smiled a real smile. She put the jet through its paces, testing its limits and her own. Loops, rolls, dives, moves that would make most passengers violently ill but felt like a dance to her. The radio crackled with occasional instructions from ground control, but mostly they let her fly, let her remember what it meant to be free. When she finally landed 2 hours later, her body ached and her face hurt from smiling. The team was waiting along with Blackwood. "Well?" the general asked. "I'll do," Maya said simply. Back in the secure operations room, the mood had shifted. Her performance in the air seemed to have earned her a measure of respect, or at least credibility. Lieutenant Zhu slid a tablet across the table to her. "I pulled all the technical data from your flight recorder. The energy signatures from the weapon that hit your squadron. I've been analyzing them for weeks." Maya scrolled through the information, most of it incomprehensible to her. "And? It's like nothing we've seen before," Zhu said, pushing her glasses up. "A directed energy weapon, but with a unique modulation pattern that allows it to penetrate our stealth coatings. Theoretically impossible according to everything we knew 3 years ago. Yet here we are." Dr. Rivera interjected. He pointed to a different section of data. The power requirements alone should make this impractical for field deployment. They'd need a nuclear power source, Maya finished, surprising herself. Something had clicked in her memory. Before my communications were jammed during Nightshade, my instruments picked up radiation spikes. Not weapons grade, but unusual. Rivera and Ju exchanged looks. That actually makes sense, Ju said slowly. A small nuclear reactor could generate the power needed. Commander Chen, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. Which means this new facility might have one too. The implications hung in the air. A secret nuclear-powered weapons platform capable of neutralizing their most advanced aircraft. A traitor who had access to both classified flight paths and technical specifications. We need more intel, Blackwood said. He turned to Alex Wu, who had been so quiet Maya had almost forgotten his presence. What have you found about potential leaks? Wu, the intelligence officer, pulled up files on the main screen. I've been reviewing everyone with access to Operation Nightshade's details. Over 200 people had some level of clearance. His voice was measured, methodical. I've narrowed it to 27 who had access to both the flight path and technical specifications of our stealth technology. Photos and names appeared on the screen. Maya scanned them, looking for familiar faces. Any of these people still have active security clearance? Blackwood asked. 17 do, Wu confirmed. The rest either retired, transferred to civilian roles, or... He hesitated. Or what? Maya prompted. Died under various circumstances. A chill ran through the room. Show me the dead ones, Blackwood ordered. Wu brought up 10 profiles. 3 heart attacks, 2 car accidents, 1 suicide, 1 home invasion, 2 cancer deaths, and 1 drowning. All within the last 3 years. That's a lot of coincidences, Maya said. Exactly, Wu replied. Statistically improbable. I've been investigating each death. The suicide and one of the heart attacks show inconsistencies in the official reports. Blackwood turned to Maya. Do you recognize anyone? She studied the faces carefully. This one, she said, pointing to a gray-haired man. Colonel Parker. He was at my final briefing before Nightshade. Heart attack 2 months after your mission, Wu said. Found in his home. And this woman, Maya continued, indicating another photo. Lisa Howard. Weapons systems engineer. She helped calibrate the stealth systems on our jets. Car accident. Brake failure on a mountain road. A third face caught Maya's eye, younger than the others with a serious expression. Him, Ben Taylor. He was communications technician for Nightshade. Handled our encryption protocols. Drowned during a fishing trip. Body washed up 3 days later. Maya sat back, rubbing her temples. So either our traitor is eliminating everyone connected to Nightshade or our traitor is one of the dead, Blackwood finished. Faked their own death to escape scrutiny. Lieutenant Ju looked alarmed. That's not what I expected when I signed up for this. Welcome to the club, Maya muttered. Blackwood began pacing, a habit Maya remembered from years ago. Wu, I want deeper background checks on all 27 people, living or dead. Financial records, communications, travel history, everything. Dr. Rivera, Lieutenant Ju, continue analyzing the weapon signatures. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. And me? Maya asked. You and Commander Chen will prepare for a reconnaissance mission. I want eyes on that facility and I want them soon. As the meeting broke up, Chen approached Maya. Unlike the others, his expression remained unreadable. Training room 0600 tomorrow. If we're going into hostile territory, I need to know you can handle more than just a jet. Maya met his gaze. I can handle myself. We'll see. Later, alone in her temporary quarters, Maya studied the files Wu had shared on her secure tablet. 27 faces, 27 lives to sift through. One of them had betrayed everything they stood for, had caused the deaths of her friends, her squadron, had nearly killed her. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Lieutenant Ju, holding what smelled like real coffee, not the sludge from the operations room. Thought you could use this, she said, offering a cup. I'm Penny, by the way. When we're not in official briefings. Maya accepted the coffee with a nod of thanks. Maya, Penny hesitated in the doorway. What you did today in the simulator and in the air, it was incredible. I've never seen anyone fly like that. Practice, Maya said with a shrug, though they both knew it was more than that. Can I ask you something? Penny's voice dropped lower. What was it like? When they shot you down? The question hung between them. Most people wouldn't have dared to ask. but there was something disarmingly direct about the young lieutenant. It was... Maya searched for words that could possibly convey the experience, like watching the world end, piece by piece. First your squadron, then your communications, then your aircraft. Then you're falling, and all you can think is, this is it. But it wasn't it for me. Sometimes I still don't know why, Penny nodded, seeming to understand what Maya wasn't saying. The survivor's guilt, the questions that never stopped. The others don't trust you yet, Penny said after a moment, especially Chen and Rivera. And you? A small smile crossed Penny's face. I believe in data, and the data says you're exactly who we need right now. After Penny left, Maya returned to the files, reviewing names and faces until her eyes burned. Just as she was about to give up for the night, something caught her attention. A small discrepancy in one of the travel records. A coincidence, perhaps, but in her experience, coincidences rarely existed in matters like these. She reached for her phone to call Blackwood, then stopped. Trust no one, he'd said. Even within their small team, the traitor might have eyes and ears. Instead, she made a note of the discrepancy and closed the file. Tomorrow she would begin training with Commander Chen for the reconnaissance mission. Tomorrow she would take another step toward uncovering the truth, and toward revenge for her fallen squadron. Maya hit the training mat hard, the breath knocked from her lungs. Commander Chen stood over her, not even breathing heavily. Again, he said, stepping back to give her room to stand. 5 days of this, hand-to-hand combat, weapons training, stealth tactics, a crash course in everything Maya had learned during her original military training, but hadn't used in 3 years. Her body was one massive bruise. She pushed herself up, ignoring the protest from her muscles. You enjoy this, don't you? A hint of a smile touched Chen's normally serious face. Only a little. Maya circled him, looking for an opening. Chen was fast, with the precise movements of someone who had spent years mastering his body as a weapon, but Maya was learning his patterns now, the almost imperceptible tells before he struck. When he moved this time, she was ready. Instead of blocking his attack, she redirected it, using his momentum against him. For a moment, surprise flashed in his eyes. Then he was on the mat, Maya's forearm against his throat. Better, he admitted as she helped him up. You might survive after all. It was the closest thing to a compliment she'd received from him. High praise, Maya said dryly. Are we done for today? Chen checked his watch. Briefing in 30 minutes. Clean up and meet in the operations room. The hot shower did little to ease the ache in Maya's body, but it washed away the sweat and cleared her mind. As she dressed, she caught sight of herself in the mirror, leaner than she'd been a week ago, with a hardness returning to her eyes that the small-town mechanic had slowly lost. Captain Lin was coming back piece by piece. In the operations room, the team was already assembled. Penny gave Maya a small smile as she entered. Wu nodded in acknowledgement. Dr. Rivera barely looked up from his tablet. Blackwood entered last, his face grim. We have new intel. The facility is becoming operational faster than we anticipated. Our window for reconnaissance is closing. He brought up satellite imagery on the main screen. The structures they'd been watching for days had changed, new buildings appearing seemingly overnight. They're accelerating, Wu observed. Something's pushed up their timeline. Or someone, Maya said. The thought had been nagging at her for days. What if they know I'm back? What if whoever betrayed us 3 years ago knows Blackwood brought me in? The room fell silent as they considered this possibility. It's a valid concern, Blackwood finally said, which is why we're moving up our timetable as well. The reconnaissance mission launches tonight. Chen straightened. Sir, with respect, we need more time to prepare. There is no more time, Commander, Blackwood replied. Our latest intel suggests they're planning to test the weapons system within 48 hours. We need eyes on that facility before that happens. Maya studied the satellite images. What's the insertion plan? Blackwood nodded to Wu, who took over the briefing. Halo jump at 0200, Wu explained, bringing up a map with drop zones marked. You'll land here 5 miles from the facility perimeter. Make your way on foot to this ridge, which gives optimal viewing angle without exposing you to their detection systems. Assuming their detection systems work like ours, Dr. Rivera interjected. We've analyzed their security patterns, Wu continued, ignoring the interruption. They have patrols here, and here. Regular intervals, but heavy coverage. This won't be easy. Chen studied the map. Extraction? 24 hours after insertion, same location as the drop. If you miss the window, there's a backup extraction point 10 miles east, but that puts you dangerously close to populated areas. Maya traced the route with her finger. What gear are we taking? Minimal, Blackwood said. This is observation only. No engagement. You'll have cameras with enhanced zoom capabilities, scanning equipment to analyze energy signatures, and standard survival gear. Nothing that would create an international incident if discovered. And if we are discovered? Chen asked the question everyone was thinking. Blackwood's expression hardened. Then you never existed. You're still officially dead, Captain Lin, and Commander Chen will be on an unrelated training exercise in Germany, according to all official records. The reality of their situation settled over the room like a heavy blanket. This wasn't just a dangerous mission, it was completely deniable. If they were caught or killed, there would be no rescue, no acknowledgement, no return of remains. Questions? Blackwood asked. Maya had dozens, but only one that mattered. When do we leave? Transport to the jump site departs at 2300. Be ready. As the meeting broke up, Penny caught Maya by the arm. I've made some modifications to your scanning equipment, she said, leading her to a workbench covered with electronic components. The standard issue wouldn't pick up the unique signatures we're looking for. She handed Maya what looked like an ordinary pair of binoculars. These will detect the radiation patterns we identified from your flight recorder data. If they're testing the same weapon system, you'll know. Thanks, Maya said, genuinely touched by the young lieutenant's thoroughness. Just come back, okay? Penny said, her professional demeanor slipping for a moment. I've got about 1,000 questions about those flight maneuvers you did. Maya managed to smile. Rain check on that coffee. The rest of the day passed in a blur of final preparations. Maya and Chen reviewed the mission parameters again and again, memorizing every detail of the terrain, security patterns, and extraction protocols. Equipment was checked and double-checked, then packed into lightweight rucksacks designed for minimal noise and maximum mobility. At 22:30, Maya found herself alone in her quarters, staring at her dog tags. The mission ahead might finally provide answers about what happened to her squadron, about who had betrayed them. Or it might simply add her name, her real name, to the list of the dead. A knock at her door broke her reverie. It was Blackwood. Got a minute? He asked. Maya nodded, slipping her dog tags back around her neck. Blackwood closed the door behind him and lowered his voice. There's something you should know before you go. Something I couldn't say in front of the others. Maya tensed. What is it? The discrepancy you found in those travel records. I had Wu look into it deeper. Blackwood's expression was troubled. It's worse than we thought. Someone's been systematically eliminating everyone connected to Nightshade, but with such care that the pattern was nearly invisible. Who? Maya asked, though she was starting to suspect she already knew. Blackwood handed her a small encrypted flash drive. Everything's on here. Names, connections, evidence. If anything happens to me while you're gone... Sir, listen to me, Captain. Trust is a luxury we can't afford right now. Not when the stakes are this high. Keep this drive safe. Look at it only when you're secure. And make your own judgment about who to trust with the information. Maya pocketed the drive, her mouth dry. You're expecting something to happen. I'm preparing for contingencies, Blackwood corrected. That's my job. He checked his watch. Transport leaves in 20. Good luck, Captain. After he left, Maya sat on the edge of her bed, feeling the weight of the flash drive in her pocket. Part of her wanted to view its contents now before the mission. But there wasn't time, and something told her that whatever was on that drive would only complicate her focus. She tucked it into a hidden pocket in her jumpsuit, where it would stay until the mission was complete. The flight to the jump zone was silent. Maya and Chen sat across from each other in the dimly lit cabin of the transport plane, each lost in their own thoughts. The pilot's voice eventually broke through on their headsets. 10 minutes to drop zone. Stand by for final weather check. Maya and Chen began their final equipment checks. Oxygen masks, altimeters, parachutes. Everything had to be perfect for a high-altitude jump into hostile territory. Wind conditions optimal, the pilot reported. Cloud cover at 60%. Temperature at drop altitude -40 Celsius. Chen caught Maya's eye. First halo jump in 3 years. Nervous? About jumping out of a perfectly good airplane into enemy territory in the middle of the night? Maya adjusted her oxygen mask. Nah, just another Tuesday. A ghost of a smile crossed Chen's face. In the past week, they'd developed a grudging respect for each other. Not quite trust. That was still in short supply, but professional respect. 2 minutes to drop, came the pilot's voice. Opening rear hatch. The back of the plane began to lower, revealing the vast darkness beyond. Wind howled through the cabin as the red jump light came on. Maya and Chen moved into position facing the open hatch. Below them, obscured by darkness and clouds, was a country whose name wouldn't appear in any official report. A facility that officially didn't exist. A weapon that could change the balance of power if it became operational. The light turned green. "See you on the ground," Chen said, and then he was gone, leaping into the void. Maya took one deep breath, then followed. The freefall was both terrifying and exhilarating. Air rushed past her as she plummeted through the night sky, her altimeter ticking down rapidly. The sensation was familiar yet alien, like a half-remembered dream. Her body remembered this feeling. The weightlessness, the focus required to maintain position, the careful monitoring of altitude. Through breaks in the cloud cover, she caught glimpses of the darkened landscape below. Somewhere down there were answers and maybe revenge. At the designated altitude, she deployed her chute, feeling the sudden jerk as it caught the air. The quiet after the rush of freefall was almost eerie. She scanned the sky for Chen's chute, finally spotting it a few hundred meters to her right. They were both on target. The landing was rougher than she would have liked, the uneven terrain making it difficult to find solid footing. Maya quickly gathered her chute, burying it under rocks and dirt to leave no trace. Chen landed moments later, executing a perfect roll before rising to his feet. They didn't speak as they oriented themselves and began moving toward their first checkpoint. Words were unnecessary and potentially dangerous. Instead, they communicated with hand signals and the occasional glance. Two professionals functioning as a single unit. The night stretched ahead of them, 5 miles of difficult terrain to cover before sunrise, then a day of observation from their hide site. If all went according to plan, they would gather the intelligence they needed and be extracted the following night, leaving no trace of their presence. But as Maya moved through the darkness, Blackwood's warnings echoed in her mind, along with the weight of the flash drive against her ribs. Someone wanted her dead, someone powerful enough to orchestrate the ambush of her squadron and the systematic elimination of everyone connected to it, and that someone might be closer than any of them realized. Dawn painted the mountains in pale gold as Maya and Chen reached their observation point. They'd covered the 5 miles of rugged terrain without detection, though there had been one close call when a patrol passed within 30 yards of their position. Now hidden among rocks and scrub brush on the ridge, they had a clear view of the facility below. "I count 23 buildings," Chen whispered, scanning with his binoculars. "Multiple security checkpoints, double perimeter fencing?" Maya nodded, focusing Penny's modified binoculars on what appeared to be the central structure. Unlike the others, this building was partially underground, with only its dome-shaped roof visible from their vantage point. Strange metallic panels covered the dome, catching the early morning light. "That's it," she said softly. "That's where they're housing the weapon." She adjusted the settings on the binoculars, activating the radiation detection function Penny had installed. Immediately, the readout confirmed her suspicion. The same unique energy signature that had been recorded by her flight recorder 3 years ago. "We need a closer look," Chen said, already calculating angles and blind spots in the security perimeter. Maya shook her head. "Our orders are to observe only. Orders change when the situation demands it." Chen pointed to a flurry of activity near the dome. Trucks were arriving, unloading equipment. Personnel in lab coats moved with purpose. "They're accelerating even faster than we thought. This isn't a test prep. They're getting ready for a full demonstration." Maya knew he was right. Whatever was happening down there, it was happening now. Not in the 48 hours Blackwood had estimated. "There's a drainage culvert on the east side," she said, spotting a potential entry point. "Looks like it runs under the perimeter fence." Chen nodded. "We go in at dusk when the shift change provides maximum distraction." They spent the day documenting everything. Patrol patterns, personnel movements, security protocols. Maya took hundreds of high-resolution photos while Chen mapped the facility layout. They ate sparingly from their rations, conserving energy for what was to come. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the valley, Maya felt the weight of the flash drive Blackwood had given her. She'd been so focused on the mission that she'd almost forgotten it. "We have a few minutes," she said to Chen. "There's something I need to check." She pulled out the small, secure tablet they'd brought for data analysis and inserted the drive. The files were encrypted, but Blackwood had given her the passphrase before they left. "What is that?" Chen asked, suspicious. "Insurance," Maya replied as the files began to decrypt. "Blackwood gave it to me before we left." Chen's expression darkened. "And you're just mentioning this now?" "Trust issues, remember?" Maya turned the screen so they both could see as the files opened. What they revealed made Maya's blood run cold. Financial records, communication logs, travel documents, all meticulously assembled to reveal a pattern. Someone high in the military chain of command had been selling secrets for years. Not just Operation Nightshade, but dozens of classified projects. And the evidence pointed to one name: General James Wheaton, the current chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. "This can't be right," Chen said, his voice barely audible. "Wheaton is Blackwood's superior. He has access to everything, including the location of this facility," Maya added, "and our mission details." The implications hit them both at once. If Wheaton was the traitor, then he knew they were here. This wasn't just a reconnaissance mission. It was potentially a trap. Chen checked his watch. "Extraction is still 18 hours away." "We can't wait that long," Maya said, suddenly certain. "Not now that we know. We need to get this information back, and we need to find out what's in that building." As darkness settled over the mountains, they made their move. The drainage culvert was their best option, tight and muddy but just wide enough to squeeze through. Maya went first, Chen following close behind. The smell of stagnant water and rust filled her nostrils as she inched forward on her elbows. Careful to make no sound, after what felt like hours, they emerged inside the compound, hidden in shadows between two smaller buildings. Security was heavy but focused outward. No one expected threats from within the perimeter. "This way," Chen whispered, pointing to a maintenance door on the side of the dome structure. They moved silently, using the patterns they'd observed all day to avoid patrols. The door was locked with an electronic keypad. Chen pulled out a small device Penny had provided, a code breaker designed for exactly this purpose. Within seconds, the door clicked open. Inside, the facility was brightly lit and sterile, like a high-tech laboratory. They ducked into a storage closet, narrowly avoiding two technicians walking down the corridor. "We need to split up," Maya said. "I'll find the main control room. You download whatever data you can from their systems." Chen hesitated, then nodded. 30 minutes, then we meet back here. If either of us doesn't make it, the other completes the mission." Maya made her way deeper into the facility, using her memory of similar military installations to navigate. Air ducts, maintenance hallways, service elevators, the universal architecture of secrecy. She found the control room on the second underground level. Through a glass wall, she could see a large chamber below, housing what could only be the weapon system. It was massive, a circular array of what looked like satellite dishes, all focused inward on a glowing central core. The technology was like nothing she'd ever seen, a hybrid of conventional components and innovations that shouldn't exist yet. And standing in the control room, speaking to what appeared to be the lead scientist, was a face Maya recognized instantly from Blackwood's files: General James Wheaton. Her hand instinctively went to her sidearm, but she forced herself to think clearly. Killing Wheaton wouldn't stop the weapon or expose the truth. She needed evidence, and she needed to get it out safely. Staying hidden, she used the camera to document everything: Wheaton's presence, the weapon design, the control systems. Then, noticing an unattended computer terminal, she took the biggest risk of all. She slipped into the room adjacent to the control center and accessed the system. Years might have passed, but military passwords still followed patterns. Using techniques she'd learned during her intelligence training, Maya gained access to the system within minutes. What she found confirmed their worst fears. The weapon wasn't just designed to shoot down aircraft, it was capable of disabling any electronic system within a 100-mile radius. Satellites, communications, power grids, all vulnerable. And the first demonstration was scheduled for dawn, a limited test targeting a nearby military installation, one belonging to their own country, disguised as a foreign attack to provoke a response. Wheaton wasn't just a traitor. He was engineering a war. Maya downloaded everything she could onto a secure drive, then slipped back out. As she made her way to the rendezvous point, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. "Security breach in Section C," announced a voice over the intercom. "All personnel initiate lockdown protocols." Section C, where she'd left Chen. Maya changed direction, moving toward the commotion. She found Chen in a server room surrounded by 3 armed guards. He was wounded, blood seeping from a gash on his arm, but still fighting. Without hesitation, Maya took action. Years of training, weeks of preparation with Chen, and the rage she'd carried for 3 years all focused into this moment. The guards never saw her coming. Seconds later, they were unconscious on the floor. Maya helped Chen to his feet. "Did you get it?" she asked urgently. He held up a small drive similar to hers. "Everything. Their whole operation. You? The weapon, the test plans, and Wheaton." "He's here." Chen's eyes widened. "We need to move now." Their escape was chaos. The entire facility was on high alert, guards flooding the corridors, alarms wailing. They fought their way back to the maintenance door, but found it blocked by security forces. "Plan B," Chen said grimly, pulling out the small explosive charges they'd brought for emergencies. They blasted their way through a different exit, emerging on the far side of the compound. Gunfire erupted behind them as they sprinted for the perimeter fence. Chen took a hit to his leg but kept moving. Maya provided covering fire, her shots precise and effective. They reached the fence just as searchlights swept over them. Chen's explosive charge created an opening, and they tumbled through, rolling down the embankment beyond. "Extraction points compromised," Chen gasped, clutching his wounded leg. Maya nodded. "Backup location. 10 miles east." They pushed through the night, evading search parties using every trick and skill they possessed. Chen's injuries slowed them, but stopping meant capture or death. Dawn was approaching when they finally reached the backup extraction point. A small clearing in dense forest, barely large enough for a helicopter. "No signal," Chen said, checking their emergency beacon. "They've jammed communications." Maya looked at the lightening sky. "We can't wait. That test is scheduled for dawn." She made a decision then, one that went against everything in their mission parameters. "Give me your data," she said to Chen. "I'm going to find transportation. Get us to a secure communication point." "How?" Chen asked, but his expression showed he already knew. "There's an airfield 3 miles north of here. I saw it on the map." Chen shook his head. "That's suicide. So is letting that weapon test proceed." Maya checked her ammunition. "Find cover. I'll be back." The airfield was small, used mainly for local cargo flights. Maya moved silently through the early morning shadows, identifying her target, a small prop plane, fueled and ready for the day's deliveries. Getting to it meant crossing open ground, a risk she had no choice but to take. When the lone guard stepped away for his morning coffee, she made her move. Starting the plane brought immediate attention, shouts and alarms cutting through the dawn quiet. But by then, the propeller was turning, and Maya was taxiing toward the runway. Bullets pinged off the fuselage as she pushed the throttle forward, urging the small plane into the air. She flew low, using the terrain to avoid radar detection, back to where Chen was waiting. The small clearing wasn't designed for landing, but Maya Lin hadn't been the best pilot in her squadron for nothing. The touchdown was rough, the plane skidding to a stop with barely feet to spare. Chen limped toward her as she jumped from the cockpit. "You're insane," he said, but there was admiration in his voice. "Get in. We have about 10 minutes before they figure out where we went." As they took off again, Maya set course for the nearest friendly border. The plane's radio was their only hope of warning Blackwood about the impending test. "Mayday, Mayday," she broadcast on the emergency channel. "This is Phoenix 1 with critical intelligence. Authentication code Echo Sierra 79er2. Static answered her, then a faint voice breaking through the jamming. "Phoenix 1, this is home base. Authentication confirmed. Report status." Maya recognized Blackwood's voice, tense but steady. "Sir Wheaton is the traitor. He's at the facility. Weapon test scheduled for dawn, targeting our own installation. We have proof, but we're being pursued." "Understood, Phoenix 1. Get to these coordinates. Friendly forces standing by." As Maya adjusted course, a new sound filled the cockpit, the unmistakable lock-on warning of air-to-air missiles. 2 fighter jets had appeared behind them, closing fast. "They found us," Chen said, stating the obvious. Maya pushed the small plane to its limits, diving toward a narrow valley. The fighters followed, their superior speed and maneuverability giving them every advantage. "We're not going to outrun them," she said grimly, "but we can make sure the data gets through." She reached for the emergency transponder, attaching both data drives to it. "This will broadcast everything we found directly to Blackwood's secure channel, as long as we stay in the air for 3 more minutes." The first missile streaked past them, a warning shot. The next wouldn't miss. Maya banked hard, flying so low that treetops brushed the plane's belly. Chen braced himself against the violent maneuvers, his face pale from blood loss but his eyes clear. "It's been an honor, Captain," he said quietly. Maya glanced at him, a hint of a smile crossing her face. "The honor's mine, Commander." The transponder light turned green, transmission complete. Their mission was accomplished. Now they just had to survive. Maya pulled the plane up sharply, directly toward the pursuing fighters. It was the last thing they would expect, a cargo plane challenging military jets. The sudden maneuver threw off their targeting systems just long enough for Maya to dive again, this time toward a narrow canyon that the larger fighters couldn't follow, scraping through with inches to spare. They emerged on the other side just as Blackwood's coordinates came into view, a makeshift landing strip with forces waiting to extract them. The touchdown was harder than before, the plane's landing gear collapsing under the strain. They skidded to a stop as friendly troops surrounded them, providing cover as they were pulled from the wreckage. Hours later, in a secure medical facility, Maya learned the rest of the story. Blackwood had used their transmitted data to expose Wheaton. The weapon test had been prevented, the facility raided by loyal forces. The conspiracy reached higher than anyone had imagined, but it had been stopped. Just barely. "What happens now?" Maya asked Blackwood when he visited her recovery room. "That depends on you, Captain," he replied. "Your official status is still deceased. You could disappear again. New identity, new location." Maya thought about the small coastal town, the repair shop, the quiet life she'd built. It seemed like a lifetime ago. And the alternative? Come back officially. Help us rebuild what Wheaton and his people tried to destroy. Your country still needs you, Maya. She looked out the window at the sky, vast and blue and calling to her. The nightmares would never fully disappear, but neither would the truth of who she was. "When can I fly again?" she asked. Blackwood smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him in years. "As soon as the doctors clear you. Your squadron's waiting." "My squadron?" "Phoenix Squadron. Best pilots we have, tasked with testing our defenses against any future weapons like the one you discovered. They need a commander who understands what's at stake." Maya touched the dog tags around her neck, thinking of her fallen friends, of the journey that had brought her here. She was no longer hiding, no longer a ghost. "I'll need a good team," she said finally. "Chen, Penny, Wu, people I can trust." "Already arranged," Blackwood assured her. "They're waiting for your orders, Captain." For the first time in 3 years, Maya Lin felt something like peace. Not the false peace of hiding, but the real peace that comes from facing the truth, no matter how painful. She was the last pilot surviving. And now she would make that mean something.